When Naomi Judd passed away by suicide on April 30th, 2022, it sent a wave of shock and heartbreak across the world. Known for her fiery spirit, unforgettable voice, and role as one half of the beloved country duo the Judds, Naomi was preparing to re-enter the spotlight. She was just one day away from being inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, a long-awaited honor that seemed to mark a new chapter. To her fans, the loss was not just devastating, it was utterly surreal, but behind the curtains of fame and applause, a deeper, far more painful reality had been unfolding, one known only to those closest to her, especially her husband of 33 years, Larry Strickland. At first glance, Larry seemed like a quiet fixture in Naomi's glamorous world. A former gospel singer and a calm, steady presence, Larry stayed mostly out of the spotlight. Their relationship was deeply private, far from the paparazzi and headlines that often followed Naomi and her daughters. But after her death, Larry could no longer stay silent. He made the heartbreaking decision to share the truth he had long protected. Naomi had been battling a fierce, relentless form of depression that never truly let her go. In a raw and emotional interview just weeks after her passing, Larry revealed what life behind closed doors had really been like. Naomi, he said, was determined to keep going, but it was getting harder. Her depression wasn't occasional sadness or bad days. It was treatment-resistant, chronic, and brutal. He described sleepless nights that lasted for weeks, moments when she could barely hold herself together once the cameras were off. Naomi's vibrant public image was a fragile mask covering her deep, private anguish. She had opened up about her struggles before. In her 2016 memoir, River of Time, Naomi bravely discussed her battles with depression, panic attacks, and suicidal thoughts after being diagnosed with hepatitis C and ending her touring career with daughter Wynonna. But what Larry shared painted an even more heartbreaking picture. Naomi's condition had worsened over time. She became increasingly paranoid, anxious, and withdrawn. Larry said there were days he could hardly recognize the woman he had loved for over 3 decades, not because of age, but because of her immense emotional pain. She didn't trust the world anymore, he said. She didn't even trust herself. And perhaps most tragically, Naomi hid much of it from the people who loved her the most, her daughters, her fans, and her closest friends. She didn't want pity. She didn't want to be seen as broken. But behind her strength was someone who was crumbling. One of the most emotional moments came when Larry revealed that Naomi had left him a note, just a few lines. She told him it wasn't his fault, that he had done everything he could, that she loved him. Larry said those words gutted him. I would have done anything to save her. But in the end, I couldn't reach her. That, he said, is the most unbearable truth. As the world mourned and her daughters Wynonna and Ashley bravely spoke about their grief and complicated relationship with their mother, Larry offered a perspective few had seen before, that of the partner who had witnessed Naomi's private battles, day in and day out. He talked about the countless doctor visits, the therapy, the medications, and the emotional roller coaster they rode together. There were good days, he admitted, and then there were days where I didn't know if she'd survive the night. Naomi was preparing for a reunion tour, had recently performed at the CMT Music Awards, and was gearing up for what seemed like a triumphant return. But behind that hopeful comeback was a woman terrified of failing. Larry said she was overwhelmed with anxiety that she wouldn't be good enough anymore, that the fans would see how much she'd changed. The pressure that once fueled her had become too much to bear. He now believes the weight of the upcoming Hall of Fame induction and tour may have pushed her over the edge. She wanted to give the world one last show, Larry said, but I think she knew she couldn't. Now, in the silence that follows her passing, Larry continues to live in the home they once shared, surrounded by photos of Naomi, reminders of her presence, and echoes of her voice. She was the music, he said. Now there's just the echo. But through his grief, Larry found a purpose. He has become a quiet but powerful advocate for mental health, urging people to understand what Naomi went through and to recognize that mental illness is not a weakness. People think depression is just sadness, he explained, but what Naomi had was pain, fear, hopelessness, all wrapped in a smile. He reminds us all, check in on the people you love, especially the ones who seem okay. At 77, Larry Strickland speaks with a trembling voice but unwavering strength. determined to share Naomi's story, not just as a country music legend, but as a woman who fought with unimaginable courage every single day. Thanks to him, we remember Naomi Judd not only for her talent, but for her battle, a battle she didn't lose, but one she simply could no longer carry alone. Here at Starloop News, we thank you for watching and remembering Naomi with us. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's break the silence around mental health together.